Hey, folks, welcome to the F-14 Tomcat Radio Show. Today we have an absolutely awesome lineup here. I'm very excited. I got some old friends. I've got AB2 Rob Todd from USS America. We go way back. And the reason that we got back together is another incredible person. Some of my friends and I refer to him as the most interesting man alive. That's Mitch Taco Bell, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Marine Corps. And many of you are wondering, why would we have a Marine aviator on this show? Well, I think you're going to find out that this is going to be one of the most interesting shows you get to listen to, because Taco is an amazing, amazing human being. And I really appreciate him putting me back in touch with Rob. So this is a great show. Taco does so many veterans initiatives we're both captains for a major airline in the company that we work for. He's a 787 check airman, which means he's an instructor in the 787. Formerly, he was an instructor in the 737. Before that, he's flown all kinds of airplanes at this company. And then he also, in the Marine Corps, flew the C-130 Hercules. He was the air boss at Al Taqaddum in Iraq. He's had a couple of turns over in Afghanistan doing different ground jobs. He's seen rocket attacks. He's worked with all kinds of folks that have seen some of the most amazing combat stories that you can imagine. And Taco seems to know everybody. He knows Arlie Ermy. He works directly with Gary Sinise Foundation, or has worked with him in the past on numerous projects. Yes. Which is amazing. He works directly with some Medal of Honor recipients through another veterans initiative where I was honored to be invited to help Taco, where we escorted 2 Medal of Honor recipients around the Oshkosh Air Show a couple of years ago. But Taco was just working with them last week, I saw on social media. He's also involved in 100 Veterans Who Give a Damn, which is another amazing veterans charity that he can tell you all about. So there's just so much there that it's almost impossible to cover it all. Go ahead, Taco. What?
Well, I guess I should set the record straight. So I feel like Forrest Gump, only in the fact that I kind of get to bounce around in history and meet and be around all these great people, right? Seriously. I mean, think about it. And, I've worked with Gary Sinise through Skyball, and my job was in taking care of all the Medal of Honor recipients that would show up. And at one point, I think we had 32 recipients. But the best part was going down to the base and getting young Marines, airmen, sailors, soldiers, get them, talk to their boss and get them permissive TAD, and have these guys come out for like 4 or 5 days. We give them a rental car, nice clean rental car. Their job is to take care of the recipient and be their aide de camp for a week. And I would tell their boss, I'm like, you've got a greater chance, of winning the lotto than you do of meeting a live recipient of the Medal of Honor, our nation's highest. And of course, ordinary guys who do extraordinary measures when the time comes. Very, very, to me, you can have football players who you admire. You can have a Hollywood person that you admire. But to me, it's these folks that have normally, to receive the medal, you're not alive. And so the ones that made it through and they are alive, they're willing to do something that, up to giving their life, jumping on a hand grenade, things like that. So to hang out with them, they're my biggest idols and rock stars.
And that brings me to, that's great. I mean, because I forgot to mention that you are the host of this YouTube channel, this podcast, basically, that's called Tall Tales with Taco. And you've interviewed all kinds of incredible folks, right? Probably several of these Medal of Honor folks. And I think even a couple that are no longer with us, right?
Yeah. A couple of them, Hershey Miyamura, he passed. I also work with Purple Hearts Reunited, Zach Fike, and he's a retired now Army lieutenant colonel. We started 10 years ago, and every now and then I get a text from somebody when I'm on TV because we are on American Pickers. And so when that show runs, I know it because somebody will text me. And then, we work with, I rebuild armored scout cars. So I was on Dallas Car Sharks. It's a reality show, but trust me when I say reality TV is not reality, man. Not reality at all. But it's been a great run. The show started during COVID because we were stuck at the house. You remember that whole 2 week stand down, stay at home, kill the virus? So we were there at the house, and it was VJ Day in August of 2020, I believe. And I go, what are we going to do? What am I going to do? And Facebook had just come out with this Facebook Live. So I picked up the phone. I put the phone on the counter, and I called Iwo Jima vet that I knew. And we had a conversation for about 45 minutes about World War II, Iwo Jima, what it was like when he came home. And I thought, well, that was kind of cool. And then people in the comments, I could see the comments on the iPad streaming. And I go, do you want me to call somebody else? And they're like, yes, all the comments. Yes, call somebody else. So I go, all right. Then I go through my Rolodex and I call guy from Market Garden, Operation Market Garden in Europe. And so I call him up. We talk about European campaign. And that led to, hey, you ought to start a podcast. Well, everybody has a podcast, but I know nothing about it. I know Joe Rogan has a podcast, but I got on, and the first person I called was Scott Gibson, who played Captain Haldane in the Pacific. He's a buddy of mine. So I called him up and said, hey, dude, you want to be my first guest? He goes, yeah, that'd be cool. So he's my first guest, but it was horrible because it was Facebook Live. Then somebody goes, hey, man, you need to get StreamYard, use that. That's what the studios use. And I said, all right, I'll pay for that. So I got StreamYard. My second guest was Dale Dye, who did all the training for all those guys in Band of Brothers, The Pacific, all those shows. And then it just kind of rolled from there. Oh God.
Marco, how do you meet all these guys? Because you
just recently had the guy from Chips on there, right? Which one of the actors?
Yeah. So Larry Wilcox. A lot of the people that I've gone through over the years are friends or people that I've worked with or met in charity events or veterans events or different things, right? And in Larry Wilcox's case, a friend of mine who's an actor up here and a Marine, old Vietnam Marine, knew Larry from the Western movies or some Hollywood thing that they did. So he did the introduction to Larry for me. And I wrote him and I said, hey, Larry, I'd love to do a podcast. And of course I put in there, I don't really want to talk about chips because they can watch a million shows about you and chips. Of course. I'm a Marine. I want to talk about you being a Marine.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that he goes, I'll give you 45 minutes. Yeah. And that show, I'm watching my timer and I've got 2 hour max and I'm at 1 hour and 50 minutes going, how do I get this great guy off? This is the best guest I've ever had. And
he's a Wyoming boy, Taco.
Yeah, he is. He is a straight up Wyoming guy. He went to Vietnam. He came back. He got a job on the TV show Lassie when he got back. And then he started doing all these other TV shows and then he got on Chips. Well, when we started talking about Vietnam, he was over there for like 13 months. And Larry, you can watch, if you watch the show, Larry starts talking about it. And I swear to God, you watch him age, what do you call it? Digress, reverse. He goes back to being 18 years old and being a kid up in, slinging the M16, getting dropped off by a Huey to do artillery spotting, for positions. So when the guys come in and they would take over a place or attack somewhere, then they could call in artillery on different mountaintops or whatever they needed. So he was kind of one of the artillery pre-planner dudes. And he goes back in time. He talks about boot camp scenes. He talks about friends that died, friends that he had. And it's funny, when we got off the thing, he goes, I just told you stories I have never told in an interview before. And I laughed and I go, yeah, Larry, that's because it's two Marines sitting there shooting the shit. You and I bet you in all your interviews, you've never had somebody that served, and you and I in particular are Marines. So we understand the lingo. We understand that whole thing. So it went really well. That was one of my fun ones. But I'll tell you this right now, because we're on an F-14 podcast. Let me pull this up. When I look at the analytics for my podcast, top content, PBY Catalina. A friend of mine bought a PBY and flew it back from France. My biggest regret, not calling in sick, buying a ticket on another airline and flying back with him. Okay, that's my biggest regret. That show to date has hundreds of thousands of views and hours, of watch time. It's just
Very cool.
it's just the PBY Catalina flying back with some music. People write in, nasty grams. Man, you should have left because he had GoPros out on the wings.
Yeah.
You should have left the engine noise going. I'm like, dude, you don't understand. You would hear no engine noise. It'd just be all wind noise.
Right.
Then the next one is my Top Gun podcast I did. And then Heater Heatley, more Heater Heatley. Those are like my top Heater Heatley, one of my favorite. Of course, Larry Wilcox, that's a huge one. Top Gun podcast and Taking Chance.
Oh man,
Taking
Another-
Chance.
another Wyoming boy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So, when you start talking about different people that you meet and things like that, those are the guys that the interviews that you think wouldn't be very popular are my most popular interviews. And the ones that I would think would be very popular, like Medal of Honor recipient. I don't think there are enough people that follow the MOH. They know of it, but they follow it, but they don't know enough to go, holy crap, he's talking about, Hershey Miyamura, a Japanese citizen who was interned, who joined the Army, made it over to Europe at the end of World War II, and then came back, then got called up for Korea and received the Medal of Honor for his actions in Korea, repelling, 1,000 Chinese guys. I mean, the bodies, he stacked the bodies like cordwood that by himself with machine guns.
Wow.
And he's just a little humble, but at the time, I mean, he was kind of a tough Japanese guy. And to hear his story and all this stuff, and if you've ever lived in Japan, I lived over in Okinawa for a year. It was funny, the hierarchy. Like the Japanese would look down on the Koreans, who would look down on the Chinese, who would look down on the Okinawans. It was always kind of this power play between the Asian countries. And so when he was captured by the North Koreans and Chinese, they did not treat him well because in their memory, which is not that long ago, the Japanese troops that had invaded, even though that's not him, he grew up in America. He's 100% American, was born there.
Yeah.
The face, hey, your Japanese heritage, your uncle probably came in and did the rape of Nanking,
Mm-hmm.
So they did not treat him well. And it's amazing that he survived. Being a POW is, just phenomenal.
And he's he was a gregarious guy too, right? Great.
Oh yeah.
Great sense of humor. I found him to be very entertaining to listen to. So that's got to be a great show for our listeners to get a chance to enjoy. Heater Heatley, of course, anybody who knows the F-14 and is a Top Gun fan would know that Heater Heatley published that book right there, The Cutting Edge, which was the inspiration for the movie Top Gun. And Heater's just a wonderful guy and can tell a great story. So I'm sure that's a great show as well.
Well, you asked earlier if there was a plug. A few years ago, we found out that Heater, because he'd come to our Top Gun event, right, that we had out in San Diego. And when we met Heater, we found out about the cancer. Well, what's the cancer from? The cancer's from his time working out in Area 51 Groom Lake, where he was flying the MiGs against the aggressors and against the fleet pilots, right? And all that area was it was kind of like the whole thing about John Wayne, that horrible movie he made as Genghis Khan.
Right.
It was filmed downwind in Utah, beautiful territory, but all that
Nuclear
radiation
fallout. Yeah.
killed half of all the people that worked on that film. And Heater is now suffering from the effects of that and the cancer. And I said, you know what? I was sitting there. I was at his house. We're on the balcony. He has this beautiful look overlooking a little wooded area. And I said, why don't we start a GoFundMe? And of course, Heater's like, I don't want to GoFundMe. I don't want anybody to give me any money. And I go, here's the deal, Heater. There are guys like me who went through a lot of, my sister died when I was in college, and I almost dropped out of school because of that. But I had already joined the Marines, had gone through OCS juniors, and I had to go back for seniors when she died. And if I had not gone back and finished, I wouldn't be a pilot. But I have his book that my mom gave me for Christmas that year. And it changed me, because if I was down or, I wasn't feeling good, why am I doing this, right? What's my purpose? And I'd pull that stupid book out and I would just sit there, and it ain't stupid. You know what I mean? It's just, I'd pull that book out and I'd look at all the pictures of flying. Now it didn't help that my uncle was also Rio with the puking dogs. So F-14 guy out of Oceana. And I grew up in that environment of fighter pilots, and I wanted to be a fighter pilot. What happened? Well, I got to flight school. There was one jet slot, one prop slot, and the rest were helos. But then again, it's a blessing because, man, I could have been that idiot that got it down because crossing the hold short because I didn't put the canopy down. But and then get cut off at the knees and become a commo. But I got to say, I love my time flying the KC-130 out of Cherry Point, Okinawa, in reserves. That was a blast. The airplane went everywhere. We weren't stuck on a ship. I spent one night on a ship in my entire career. One night, dude. And
that was
a Carnival cruise.
No, I've never been on a cruise. We went out on the ship, and then I don't remember which one it was.
What ship was it, Toggle?
I don't remember. That was 35 years ago. Something Pedro County or Fort Snelling or something. It was something that the front opened up and our little LAVs pop out. It was LSD.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Such a big impact. You can't remember the name. Yep.
Yeah, I spent one night on it. They didn't allow us to go cruise around the ship. We got on the ship. We were able to go to the the chow hall and get the what you call
auto
it? Auto dog, get the ice cream. We weren't around
wardroom for you.
Yeah, we weren't able to. Yeah, no wardroom. We weren't able to walk around the ship really. We were kind of confined to our area, and then we did a mock. As lieutenants, we did this mock battle where we assaulted the beach and attacked there at Little Creek. So that was fun. But anyway, Heater wouldn't have it, And I finally said, there are a lot of people in this world that you have affected their lives, inspired them because of what you did and that photograph, and because the two guys sitting there getting their teeth done are reading the New York, California magazine, and had his picture, Star Wars in the sky, or what they call it, Star Wars on Earth.
Star Wars on Earth.
It was this picture right here on the cover, because that photograph created basically the genesis for Top Gun, and he happened to be working there. So because he was into photography, they let him operate the camera off the ship when they were doing the flyby down the ship, and they're pretending to do the roll like he had just taken off on the catapult and does an aileron roll. All those things, the air-to-air stuff. He did a lot of work on that movie. So when we started it, long story short, we started it on a like a Christian site, and the money pretty much goes to Heater, all of it. If you go in there, you can donate some money to them, type thing, to help support them. but the money, unlike GoFundMe or something, the money just goes to heater. And we raised over $100,000
Hmm.
in about 6 months.
His cancer treatments have been about 3 times that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But it's
Yeah.
really helped him, and a game changer for him. So when I talk to him now, he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm playing softball, or I'm doing this and I'm doing that." I'm like, "Man, that's awesome." So
Yeah,
You want to
I
hear
mean, from
a
what I
heater?
understand, he was basically on his last treatment, and you guys got him the next level experimental treatment, right?
yeah, he was able to afford it because of the funds that came in from the generosity of gold wingers out there, all the maintainers that knew him, just all the folks that were affected that probably became gold wingers or Air Force pilots because of Top Gun. Yeah.
I've got a
Amazing.
tie-in for this later. Yeah, I can do it now or I can do it later on in the show, but there's a whole tie-in between Heater, you, Leekster, and I from all
Well,
this.
I want to hear that. The Leekster and you, I can't remember what website I had joined or what I was a part of. It was some F-14 deal that they let me, come in and join their group. And I saw a posting you had put up talking about what life was like and how you had met this F-14 pilot who was the greatest guy in the world named Jerry Leekster,
Yeah.
Leekey, and they called him Leekster. And I'm
Yeah.
laughing as I'm reading this thing, and I screenshot it and I sent it over to Leekster, and I DM'd you and I said, "Hey, you don't know me from Adam, but I happen to know Leekster, and I'd like to get you two hooked up." And Leekster was just like, "Oh, dude, yeah," in a heartbeat. And that's how I got you two connected, which I find ironic after all these years. And that's the one thing social media was good for. There are
Right.
about 10 things I can count on my hands that have been good for the world, for society, and the other 90% of it is garbage and hateful, and it just gets your blood boiling. But that thing with you and Leekster, the story, you go down to the ready room, you're all nervous, you go talk to him, and I thought, how could you be nervous talking to Leekster? He's the funniest guy in the world. And speaking of, one of the other funniest podcasts was with you, Leekster, and the helmet visor story.
Yes.
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 That interview was great, and oh my God, our YouTube brother, that one was funny as hell too. Oh shoot, man, we've had
With
we've had
Huggy.
some good interviews. Huggy is just so damn funny,
He's
John.
hilarious.
Huggy was
Yeah.
a good one too. Yeah.
Yeah, so the last time I was at your house, you had your armored car, you had your Jeep with a recoilless 105 on it, but most importantly, you had the flight engineer panel from a 727 where we had to sit in front of it, you and I, and try and decipher the checklists and look at the panel that we both had to operate when we were new hires at our first major airline job, and that was really fun to look at that flight engineer panel and try and remember all the things we had to do because frankly, a lot of people don't realize that job is not really a pilot job. You're not doing any piloting. You're just a systems manager. So you're managing the air conditioning, pressurization, electrical, hydraulics, and the engine monitoring. So yeah, it's all the comfort stuff and all the basic systems of the airplane that the pilots that nowadays is monitored and managed by a computer and automatically. So lets us as pilots just fly the airplane safely. So and lets us know when something goes sideways. So
that was absolutely the greatest job that I've ever had ever. It was a great slide to go from military to the airlines, and then you see how it operates without all the responsibility. You kind of have a lot of leeway being I used to wear a little train hat, the little white and black striped train hat. People get on the airplane to go, "Hey, I get it. You're the engineer." And I'm like, "Yes, you got it."
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd go back and I'd walk through and I'd get all the kids and gather up all the kids, and I'd bring them up to the front of the airplane, and I'd say, "Now I'm not allowed to let you into the flight deck. But I'm going to open the door, and while I'm waiting for my cup of coffee from the flight attendant, you can look in there and take turns looking into the flight deck. This is all pre 9/11, you know, because my very first ride was on a 727. I was 6 years old. My aunt was a gate agent, and we went from DC to Knoxville, and the flight attendant comes up and says, "Hey, little boy, you want to go to the cockpit?" I'm like, "Yeah." You know, and I go up there. There's the old guy. He's probably a World War II B-17 dude sitting there smoking his Marlboros. He's got the big glasses on. The FO they're sitting there talking about, I don't know, flying Vietnam or something. The engineer gave me his cookie off his meal, and I'm sitting in the jump seat. And I thought, okay, now I've just come from DC where it had been raining for 3 days, big low pressure system. We punch up through the clouds. There's the sun. And it looked like an ocean of white. And you know what I'm talking about. It's just beautiful. And I go, this is cool. Pilots get to see the sun when normal people on the ground don't. So what do you want to be when you grow up, kid? I want to be an airline pilot, right? Holy crap. Hey, how many dreams have been stifled because we don't do that? We're not able to do that.
Right.
I agree 100%. Yes. And that is something that I always enjoyed. And when I was a kid, I'm exactly the same as you. That was sitting in the jump seat, you know, flying in an airliner and watching these guys and thinking, these are the coolest guys I've ever seen in my life. I want to be one of them. This looks like an amazing, wait, you get to fly this multi-million-dollar machine from city to city all over the world and have this, and they bring you food. They actually bring you food in the cockpit.
Oh, wait, you can get a Coca-Cola whenever you want. Oh, my God. I would take the subway from my house in Arlington down to National Airport. And I'd go through, get past the Harry Krishna dude standing in front of the airport, get into the security that was run probably by homeless dudes, and then go through, and I would go to the restaurant that was there in the old airport in DCA. National Airport, and I would wait, and I'd find a gregarious looking captain with his FO and flight engineer walking in, and I'd go, "Hey, Captain, my name's Mitchell Bell. I'm a junior high student at Swanson. I'm doing a project on career day, and I want to be an airline pilot. Do you mind if I sit down and interview you guys?" And they're like, "Oh no, sure, kid, come on, dude. That was always good for a hamburger, a free Coke, you know." I'm a future pilot, right? Free newspapers, free hamburgers. There we go. No, that was the way to go. But that sparked it, and then joined the Marines at 19. Did the PLC program. Got commissioned in '88. Went to the basic school. We call it the Big Suck. The basic school. You spend about 4 months out of the 6 months, Monday through Friday, living in the woods and practicing the squad tactics and different things and leadership things and whatever weapons. And
was that at Quantico, Taco?
Yeah, that was at Quantico.
Mm-hmm.
TBS sucked so bad that the Washington Monument lists about 30 degrees to the southwest. You know? So TBS, man, it was like you had to get through it. And all of us were aviators. We'd wear goggles when we were doing land nav or we're out patrolling at night, because you never knew if that idiot in front of you would snap the branch back and whack you in the face. Didn't want to lose your eyes, so you'd wear goggles. They're like,
glasses.
You wimp, you know. And I'm like wearing goggles, ski goggles or something. I'm like, I'm not taking a chance. But then go to flight school, Pensacola, Corpus, which was the best place to go as a primary kid. And
agreed.
And
that's where I went to. I liked it.
Yeah, Corpus. Then stayed there for maritime for VT-31 for King Airs, and then from King Airs, Little Rock, Cherry Point, Okinawa, Kansas City, recruiting duty, Kansas City. The day I got out, hired at my airline, and reserves, retired in 2015.
Were you always a history nerd when you were growing up? I mean, were you interested?
I was a history major. Yeah.
Okay, so when you went to Okinawa, that must have been really cool, right? You go, oh my goodness, I'm in this amazing place. I mean, that must have been incredible.
Yeah, especially the year that I was there. It was the 50th anniversary of the Battle of Iwo Jima. And so I became I was like the squadron historian. So we did a big trip with the squadron, and we brought all these Marines out to Iwo Jima. And then we hiked up to the top of Mount Suribachi and the Marines that wanted to get reenlisted at the top of Mount Suribachi did the reenlistment ceremony.
God.
And then I would walk them through down on the beach and the different divisions and where they came in. We walked relatively, it's about 3 miles from the airport up there. We kind of stayed in that general area because that was where the biggest battles were. But I also gave them stories about that I heard from, you're talking to young Marines that were young back then. I knew, oh geez, he's passed now. He's a P-51 pilot. It's going to come to me by 2 o'clock this morning. I got up at 4 this morning, so I apologize. He was a P-51 pilot there, and he would come back from missions. And because it's volcanic, it's still active. Under in the tunnels, it's got to be 115 degrees, but a dry heat. And they had saunas set up, natural saunas set up because of the heat. And they would come back 8-hour mission in a P-51, and they could barely get out of the cockpit.
Sure.
The guys would help them out. They put them in they would have massage tables, and they'd have people trying to work the knots out. They'd put them in the hot tub, and then they would go do the mission again the next day, escorting B-29s. Okinawa was different. I found a lot of really cool stuff on Iwo Jima that was perfectly preserved. Okinawa, the battle there was one of the most ferocious battles. If you've watched the HBO show, The Pacific, really depicts that pretty well from E.B. Sledge's book with the old breed, which I highly recommend if you haven't read it, and great present for Father's Day if you want the premier book on what it was like being a snuffy in the Pacific. And so the Battle of Okinawa, I have a green army book on the history of the battle. And I had this guy that would take me and my buddy Tom, and we would drive down past Naha, down past Sugarloaf and all the famous battles, and we'd go exploring. You're walking through some farmer's field, and we had sticks because we're looking for the habu snakes. They're like two-steppers. You don't want to get bit by them. And then you'd bust through the jungle canopy, and it was Indiana Jones with these big banana spiders dropping. They catch birds. I mean, they're pretty big. And then you get inside the canopy, and you're walking around. The guy is like, we got our e-tools, and he goes, start digging right there. Where? Right there. And you'd see this little indention on the side of the hill. And we'd start digging, and what it was they'd throw satchel charges and blow up the entrance to the caves and entrap the Japanese if they didn't have exit. A lot of the caves were connected, which we found. We'd bust into a cave, and that cave would go for 50 yards, 75 yards into other rooms that Japanese soldiers would be fighting from. And all the explosives, like the mortar rounds that they had the little 61 millimeter mortars or something, smaller knee mortars, whatever they called those. The Japanese had like knee mortars. All the metal and everything was dissolved. It was gone. There was absolutely nothing metal inside these caves. You could find ceramic dishes with the Imperial Navy and the Army seals on the bottom. You could find eyeglass pieces. I found a lot of the round pieces from glasses. And some of the heels from the boots were there, but the rest of the stuff would be gone. So there wasn't much there. I mean, there were bodies in there. We'd find the bodies, and we would annotate where they were, and then we turn those into the Japanese, and they would go reclaim the bodies. But they're not like Americans in terms of the Japanese soldier would be allowed to grow his fingernails and his hair and his facial hair out. And so the guy, after 30 days, would then cut his nails, shave, and collect and shave his head. And he would collect all that stuff and mail it home to his parents in a letter, so that if Johnny disappeared and they got the letter saying, Oroko is gone, they could bury what they had from him, and for their religion, that was enough, right? where Americans want to go reclaim. To this day, I brought the body of a fighter pilot back from World War II, and they had discovered his body in a F4U Corsair, and I brought his body back from Hawaii. So we go to the efforts of trying to repatriate our dead, and the Japanese were kind of like, wherever they are, they're good, and their soul's where it needs to be, and the parents have closure because they have a little bit of their son. So I thought that was kind of interesting. A lot of exploring. Did D-Day, the 80th anniversary of D-Day, which was really cool. If you haven't been, highly recommend, especially on one of the big anniversary years, like the next one will be the 85th. That place is chock full of, you think Americans, right? No, they are from all over Europe dressed as American soldiers. They're driving reconditioned Jeeps that would make your eyes weep. They all carry Tommy guns and M1 Garands, and they look the part. They have bivouacs. They have tents set up. They're out there living in little pup tents for the week. They drive tanks. They have Greyhounds. They have Jeeps. They have all this stuff. And then you find out, you go up and talk to the guy, can't even speak English. He's from Belgium or something, So
why do you think that is?
I don't.
Because I have a good friend
appreciation?
in Italy. I have a good friend, and he owns a U.S. Navy, like an old, Willie Jeep, and it's painted a gray and U.S. Navy. It's perfectly restored. It's stunningly perfect. And I just find that interesting that there's a guy in Italy owns a Willie Jeep, from World War II, and I saw the pictures from 2-3 years ago on the 80th. Some of the Jeeps that I saw were just spectacular. The restorations on the equipment were incredible. I mean,
at our hotel,
and they were British. They were British guys that were doing this.
Well, the guy that cracked me up was at our hotel. He had a Jeep, and he comes out with his 1919 machine gun, throws it on the pintle. He's loading up the stuff. He's talking to his buddy, and I go, man, that is a beautiful Jeep. I own one too. Actually, I had of 1943 Willys, and I sold it and bought the Mutt 151. And I go, that's really nice. You did a great job. And in broken English, he's like, oh, Dankeschön. Thank you. And I'm like, oh, wie geht's? Deutsch? And he's like, yeah, Deutsch. Ich wohne in Wandsbek on the Standard von Hamburg, whatever. And I'm like, oh, wow. And then I start talking to him. I mean, he's straight up German. I go, wait a minute. You're German. Shouldn't you be German Army? And he goes, nobody wants to be German Army. They have such a bad, reputation. So we like being on the winning side. And we have more parts that we can get for the vehicles. So
that's what I would think. There's definitely more parts available for sure.
Taco, do you think it's just an appreciation for what the Americans did for them, and they still, even though they weren't there, they know what their grandparents went through, or that's the appreciation of what the military did?
It's when you're driving around Bayou and all the areas up there near Normandy, every single house has an American flag.
Mm-hmm.
I was never treated more graciously than when I was over there. And I've been in Paris a million times where I'm not a super big fan of Paris, Parisians. And I'd never been out of the city. This is my first journey. I told my wife, I said, if we had to move somewhere, we're moving to France. We're moving down there by Normandy somewhere.
It's almost like sovereign U.S. territory right there.
Yeah. I mean, they appreciate it. They appreciate what we did and the lives that were sacrificed, which when you go to the cemetery is very
life-changing experience.
Yeah, it really is.
So speaking of restored vehicles, you have a business, and it's amazing. After, I remember when you got your first Hummer, and now you have a whole collection of them, I understand. But what's the business called, and what are you guys doing?
So we started a veteran-owned business called Just a Hummer LLC. And it's what everybody wants. They want a Humvee. So we rebuild these things. We buy them from the government, fix them up. And then the idea was that we could use them in TV commercials and film, because our area in in Texas has really blossomed with Taylor Sheridan.
Right.
I got together with the car guy from it was Lioness TV show, first season. They had to rent 15 Hummers from a guy up in Tennessee, ship them all down to Texas to use them, and they're static displays. They weren't even I don't even think they're driving around. And so we were like, man, we could do this. So we're building them up. We've got about 14 or 15 Humvees right now. We're selling a
Wow.
few just to make some more money to buy some other ones. But
Yeah.
I just bought a GMV from GovPlanet. You've seen the advertisements for
Yes.
vehicles.
Yeah.
So GovPlanet is the Ritchie brothers, and they do wholesale. They do the auctions for the government,
Mhm.
and then they take a big cut, and that's how they make their money. But the problem with that is you can't see, taste, or feel what the condition of the vehicle is. You see the photographs.
Hmm.
Most of the time, they're not running. Um, so you're kind of, you're really rolling the dice on what you get. And we ended up buying two GMVs because it was they're two special forces Humvees that were released. Eight total have been released by the government. We were fortunate enough to win the bids and get two of them. So now I have a 50 cal semi-automatic Modus that'll go up in the turret.
Hmm.
And right now up in the turret, I have a 50 cal gas fired. It uses oxygen and propane, and it is so loud. The video does not do justice. I had to put a notice in my neighborhood on Facebook. I'm like, hey guys, when you hear a machine gun going off, it's not real. Don't call the
Yeah.
sheriff. We're good. We're not being invaded. And of course all the guys are like, dude, I want to come see it. I'm like, come on down, I'll let you fire it,
Yeah.
You get up there, and I put kids up there, and I'm like, hey, they've got headsets on because it is so loud. Tuk, 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 tuk. And you can
Hmm.
adjust the propane and the oxygen to,
Wind triggers.
yeah, you got the little wings like that,
Hmm.
little butterfly. So, so that's fun. So we're working on those, and that's our big project. And then that those are going to be really, yeah, driving through Chick-fil-A, and that is going to be cool. I drove through Chick-fil-A in my armored scout car, the
I saw
Fox, the
that.
big one with the 30
Yeah.
millimeter cannon. What I
Yeah.
didn't realize till afterwards is my son was in there dicking around, and he was spinning the turret left, right, and the barrel up and down. And he had done the barrel up. So when I drove through, I missed taking out their overhang by about 4 inches. I'm
Oh
watching
my
that barrel
goodness.
later in the video going, oh God, if it had hit that thing, I would have just taken it straight out. Probably not damaged the barrel on the 30 millimeter, but I would end up
Yeah.
been paying for that overhang. But it's kind of fun. That's
Awesome.
what rich airline captains do, right? So I have 5 Hummers here at the house right now. My buddy's got 6 down at his house. We're storing another 4 across the street, and then we have a mechanic that's working on a couple of them right now.
But they're not just for movies, right? You have them tricked out for parties and stuff too, don't you?
Yeah. We'll do like I've got a Hollywood Hummer. We built 2 exactly like it, 2 the same. They were mine was originally a 2-man. I turned it into a 4-man with an armor top and back, and a remote control turret with a 50 cal and a missile launcher. And so I can control the turret from inside, and it has lighting all the way around it, MRAP lighting. So when you turn on the white lights, it is daytime. At night, it's daytime. And then I turn on the IR lights, and I literally drive around my neighborhood with the lights off and my MVGs, and it's like daylight. And I have spotlights that I can control. The passenger actually can control the spotlights with the arm switch, and you can turn those things up, down, left, right, full 360, whatever. But yeah, we were out shooting pigs. We were using MVGs and lasers on the ARs.
Well, we know that during the zombie apocalypse, we're all meeting in Taco's house.
We are
That
all
was
meeting in
the,
Taco's house.
Hey man, entry fee is 2 boxes of 50 cal Ma Deuce, and if you got that and a couple 308s, you'll be welcome with open arms.
what about a case of whiskey?
case of whiskey and a 308 and some 50 cal rounds would make you. I'd give you a bunk up in my office. How about that? You could have the couch.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, yeah, man. I tell you, it is a lot of fun. People would always ask, so what do your neighbors think about the? Because it looks like a tank. The license plate said Texas
Mhm.
tank. That 30 millimeter up on the top was used on a different track vehicle the Brits had. So I drive it around all the time, and people like, is that road legal? And I'm like, yeah, it's road legal. And when I
But
get pulled
it's
over
been
by
in
the,
quite a few television shows and movies or stuff, hasn't
yeah,
it?
it was Dallas Car Sharks was, as a matter of fact, was on the other day because I got a text from a guy with a picture of me on TV, and he goes, "Dude, I want a signature. I want an autograph next time I see you." I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
"Yeah." Um, it, it's just stupid stuff we do. We do a bunch of dumb stuff.
But it's cool.
Fantastic. So speaking of zombie apocalypse, and you had one of your Hercs was over there in Iran, and I know you told me a story about you guys were doing some aerial refueling and some shenanigans went on with a
Oh,
C-130 off of Iran once. Is that I don't remember the
that
details.
that is a story that so when the guys came back, they were talking about this guy who left the squadron after the airplanes got back, and they just called him Major. Let's just say Major D. Won't say his full name. So Major D was flying along, and they were right there on the border of Iran, and they're sitting there doing circles, doing MCON tanking. So jets would just they knew where the Texaco was. They'd fly up there, flag them with the radar, knew where they were or whatever, and then drive up, and the guy would flash them the lights. Probe would come out. They put the hose out, and then they would refuel the guy, and he would write down the bureau numbers on the side of the airplane, and then the plane would take off and go back to wherever it was going. And you do it all without talking, right? Tanking. So they're sitting there and they're drilling along, and the navigator has this little monitor where he can put, all the waypoints and everything. We don't have that up. We couldn't see it up front. He had it back there, and he would tell you go left, go right, whatever heading 195, whatever you needed. Well, he kept telling Major D, "Hey, you need to come left. The winds are blowing you off to the right every time you come around. The winds are pretty strong." And finally, this guy turns around, looks at the navigator, sergeant, and says, "Hey, you see these goddamn wings? I'm a goddamn naval aviator. I know how to fly a friggin' airplane." He goes, "Okay." So he just reaches over and turns his thing off, turns it down, goes back to reading War and Peace or whatever the hell he was reading, Lee's Lieutenants, I think, and they're fine. They're just drilling along. And about maybe 30 minutes later or so, kid in the back goes, click, click. He goes, "Hey, gentlemen, we've got a F-14 coming up on the starboard side." And they're like, "Okay, get into business." Engineer does his stuff. Hose, 87-foot, 85-foot hose comes out with a 27-inch diameter basket, comes sliding out the right side. And the F-14 gets lined up. Probe comes out. And then he starts attacking it, and he can't plug in. And the Lance Corporal in the back's like, "God, this guy," and he's giving kind of a running commentary. Now, this is all secondhand, right? I've heard all the stories from all the different people. So I'm just relaying the story. And he goes, giving a running commentary to everyone. He goes, "This guy sucks. This Navy pilot's the worst aerial refueler plugger I've ever seen. This guy absolutely sucks. He can't get it in, man." And they're all coming up on the radio going, "Yeah, I bet he doesn't have sex," and all this stuff. Too much time on a ship. And I mean, they're coming up with all these old jokes. Well, the dude finally gets the plug engaged, and the Lance Corporal goes, "Ah."
Yeah.
And they start passing the gas to him. Well, then he's sitting there looking at the airplane, and he goes, "That doesn't look right." So he deselects on our airplane on the F models. You could deselect all the positions, and just me and you could talk if whatever position you're in. So he deselects everyone. And he gets the gunny, the engineer. And he says, "Hey, gunny, I need you to come back here. I really need you." And he goes, "What do you need? What's going on?" He goes, um, "I don't know, but I need you back here." Gunny goes, "All right." So he leans over to Major D, and the co-pilot says, "Hey, I'll be right back." And he unplugs and he goes in the back of the airplane. And he lifts up. He goes, What's going on? And the kid goes, Hey, Gunny, what country is that jet from? And he gives him his little manual. And he's looking at his manual, and he's like looking at the country flags. And he goes, Holy shit. And he unplugs the kid's mic, and he plugs his headset into it and deselects and selects the navigator and goes, Hey, shithead, where the hell are we? And the guy goes, Why don't you ask the goddamn naval aviator? He knows how to fly an airplane. He knows exactly where he is. And he goes, turn up your damn screen. And he turns the screen up and goes, Holy shit, we're over in Iranian airspace. And so he unplugs, runs back up, and he goes, Hey, sir, you drifted over into Iranian airspace. That is an Iranian F-14 that you're giving gas to. I would highly recommend slowly drifting back over to the left and see what happens. And so he does, turns the airplane, starts slowly dragging this guy. And as soon as he went across the border, the F-14 unplugged, pulled up, gave him a little wings and a salute, and then peeled off. And they pulled the deal back in there. And after that, I think he was like, okay, what hitting should I be on now? Oh, man.
Well, I'm sure they were grateful.
Oh, yeah. I think the Iranian guy was sent up there to do something, right? And then when all of a sudden he pulls up and the hose comes out, he's like, oh, I can't pass this opportunity up.
No way. That's awesome. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever refueled. Let me try it. See how it works.
So you guys you got to do a couple tours in Afghanistan. I know you went there a couple times. You were in Iraq, and I remember hearing a porta potty story. I think it was in Iraq, but you were the air boss there. What does it mean to be the air boss, anyways?
Yeah, that was a good question. As a reservist, you're a free agent. I get this whole list of job opportunities, BICs to fill, and I'm asking the guy, "What's the battle captain?" He goes, "I don't know." I go, "That actually sounds really cool, captain, right?"
The
I'll put that on
captain.
my short list. Battle captain. I didn't know what that was. And then it had assistant air boss. So I was one of the air bosses. I was the assistant air boss to the colonel. And I go, what does the air boss do? I know what he does on the carrier, but what does he do in Iraq? And the guy goes, I don't know. I guess he bosses airplanes around. He's a grunt. I said, okay, put that on my short list. And anyway, I ended up going with that. And I went down to Al Asad, landed at Al Asad. We got hit by 8 122 millimeter rockets as soon as we got off the C-17. So it's nothing like 140 degrees going from a nice 72 to 140, instantly blowing up with sweat, trying to run as fast as you can across this tarmac, 140 degrees. And out of the corner of your eye, you see the explosion, the flash. And then you feel the compression wave and the crump hit you. And you're like, holy crap, man, this shit's real. Run into the building. Well, Air Boss, we were in charge of all things for the airfield. And the 9 lines would go to us. We had telephones that were hot, we called them bat phones, and they went directly to the squadrons. We had CH-46s, UEs, and Cobras. And so we had what we called the lily pad. That's where the frogs were. And then we had Skid Row where the Skid Boys were. They would take 2, they would have a helicopter, a Cobra and a UE escort, or 2 UEs or 2 Cobras, escort the 46s around to different missions. So if you got hit, we would get the 9 line. Then I'd pick up the bat phone, call the squadron, and we had a ready alert airplane that was ready to go. All they had to do was hit the starter switch and crank it up. And they would have gators that would race them out to the helicopters, because that was the golden hour. If statistically, if you could get rescued, picked up, and brought back to our hospital, level 3+ trauma hospital, if you could get back, we could most likely save your life.
Yeah, that goes for any trauma, whether it's a car accident or a gunshot wound. I mean, as civilians, should also be aware that you have, when people get an amputation from a limb, you've got about an hour to get them to quality medical treatment to save their life. And so that's why time is of the essence. And when you're on the battlefield like that, having helicopters ready to go to get people out of FOBs or wherever they're engaged quickly into a hospital is really what can save their life. So that's a
Yeah,
big
that
deal.
that that job was 7 days a week. You might give the guys 1 day to sleep in, but you were always we were doing the PPRs. We were having Russian airplanes because the cargo guys wouldn't fly in. FedEx and those guys, it was too dangerous. So we
Yeah.
hired these Russians, and the Russians would come in, and they would play games with you. Like part of their contract was they had to fly from wherever they were in to drop off the stuff, and they had to have enough gas to be able to take off again before sunset. And those were the rules. And some of these guys would try to come in and they would tell you, well, I don't have enough gas to leave. You must give me gas. And I'm like, no, I'm not giving you anything. You can have your company bring gas in on the next bird, and then you guys can pump it in yourself. I'm not giving you my gas. Then we just sit here then. I said, fine. Bad guys saw you land, so they know that there's a big, fat, juicy target sitting out there. So I'm going to have my guys come hook a tow bar up, and they're going to drag your happy ass all the way around to the backside of the field, farthest away from the mortars, okay? But if the rockets get you, I can't do anything about that. The next thing I know, Ruski 2-1 requesting permission for engine start and takeoff. I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. You're just trying to get free gas out of us because there was no way they could pay us. You were talking about the toilet. The only time I came close to getting killed, I thought, was we had 6 porta potties. Lived up in the top of the control tower in an old Iraqi bathroom, but they had pulled all the there was no plumbing, no water. So I had 2 beds, a desk, and a refrigerator, and I was right next to my office. So to go downstairs, to take a piss was a pain in the butt. So I had a big plastic jug thing that it held fire retardant or something, and I sprayed that out and cleaned it out and kept spraying it, and I would use that as my piss jug. And then if I had to go, hit the head, I could in the mornings I go down and dump it in the porta potty and then take the hose and wash it out, haul it back up. But I was sitting down there, and it was, you're not in there for very long. Put it this way, your body gets conditioned to go into you ever been in a porta potty in a hot summer day? Imagine being
It's not good.
in a porta potty that's probably 150 degrees. You want to sit there with the door open, but you don't want to be that guy. It's hot. There are flies rolling, around, and all of a sudden, you try to time it so you go take a dump at night or early morning when it's cooler and try to avoid the daytime. But down there one day, and this friggin' 122 rocket flies over and it hits on the other side of the HESCOs, but the explosion rocks all 6 of these porta potties back and forth. And all I could think of was, holy crap, I'm about to get killed. Piece of shrapnel. I could see in my mind, piece of shrapnel coming through, hitting me through the fiberglass of the porta potty. And I fall backwards and I'm dead and I'm covered in crap and blue juice. I thought, what a way to go. That's not the way I want to go. So it was like all of a sudden you hear anybody that's in there like going, oh, shit, 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 shit. And
Yeah.
it was like 2 wipes and you're out of there. Back in the building.
Constipation ended.
Yeah, because they launched a couple rockets, right? Yeah. But the fun part was I could jump in the car, and my job was to race up and down the runways and the taxiways to make sure that there was no shrapnel on there. There was no hits on the taxiways. So I got to get out when everyone else got secured for an hour. But we had some F-14s come land in TQ.
Oh yeah.
They diverted Al Assad. They were going to go to Al Assad, I think, for gas or something. And they had a big sandstorm, so they diverted down to TQ. And I found a guy who was he was an armorer on Marine Harrier jets in Cherry Point. And he had gone National Guard. And this guy, I called him up and I said, he's Army. And I'm like, hey, Sergeant so-and-so. Hey, it's Air Boss. How you doing? Hey, I'm good, sir. Hey, you were armor on jets, right? Fighter jets and stuff? Oh, yes, sir. Do you know how to do the pins and secure all the missiles on bombs and stuff on these F-14s that landed? And he goes, oh, hell yes, sir. I could do that. So he drove over, we took him on the flight line. He went out and pinned all the bombs or whatever they had to do to arm the bombs. He disarmed them or put a pin in them, or he did something.
Saved him. Yeah.
Saved them. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. But the
You
F-14
got to
looked
save the
good.
gun. You got to save the missiles, and whatever CADs are on there, maybe depending on what's hanging off the airplane. But yeah, that's a big deal. I had to divert into Cherry Point a couple times and had some live on the airplane and had to drop here, and they had to bring out these that are they have worked with our team or so trying to figure out how to arm our plane while I'm in the car. One of the things that started.
Oh, LEEKSTER,
So
you're
yeah,
locking up.
that's. I lost you.
Yeah, you're locking up there for a second. Damn. So you had some
You're
guys
back.
at Cherry Point that were able to work on them?
Yeah, I had a hydraulic failure coming off target there in North Carolina, and ended up dumping it into Cherry Point and took a field trap, and then their ordies came out, and of course they didn't know how to disarm an F-14. They didn't know how to safe it up, so they figured it out. Of course, eventually somebody with experience that had seen other airplanes or whatever, but.
Yeah.
But we got out of the airplane, and our guys are calling down from Oceana. Hey, make sure they don't steal our CADs, off of the airplane. The stuff can't disappear. You can't have explosive devices, just disappearing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was kind of a big deal. And then, so then about a month later or 2 weeks later, I'm dropping bombs on the same target and had another hydraulic failure. Then the trusty F-14 had to make another emergency landing at Cherry Point, and the same fire truck guys came out. And they're like, hey, sir, can we have your patches? I'm like, I gave you guys my patches last week, man. I'm out of patches.
Actually, you had a
So,
girlfriend there. You had a girlfriend at Cherry Point. Was she some dependent's daughter or the ex-wife of Lance Corporal or something? You met her at the O Club there on base. Shame, dirty shame. Yeah. What's
yeah,
funny
it
is
was,
we were there at the same time then in 91 to 94. You probably
yeah.
came in at the same time I was there.
Oh, yeah. That's really
God, that
funny,
would've been
man.
funny if
Small
we'd met
world, of
back then.
course. Yeah, probably.
Oh God, yeah.
So I have you do this. I saw the other day that you did this 100 veterans who give a damn, and I know that that's a charity that you guys do, and it's a bunch of pilots and veterans, I guess, group. And what exactly does that do for folks, or what does the money go to, or how do you raise the money?
All right. So, Jay Pellicone, who's a retired Marine colonel from the company, retired captain from the company as well. Jay called me up one day. I had just gotten back from Shanghai or Beijing, and he goes, "Hey, I got this great idea." The idea fairy sitting on his shoulder. I got this great idea. I went to this thing called 100 Guys Who Give a Damn in Dallas, and they do a fundraiser for charities. And I'm like, I really don't want to be. I don't want to be involved in a charity taking care of charities. He goes, no, 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 no. We're going to do 100 vets. I guarantee you, we've got 100 vets in the area. We get food, we get booze. We put this on. Everyone brings a check for $100, and then we invite 3 veteran charities to come out. They get 5 minutes to speak from the heart. No AV, no PowerPoint presentation. Just speak to the group from the heart. Everyone votes, and the charity that wins the most walks away with $10,000 if you have 100 guys. And that was the whole thing behind it. We've been doing this for 7, 8 years now, and we have
Wow.
one a quarter. And the company's
7
really
to 8 years, and
good.
you've given out $40,000 a year.
No, we've given out over 40,000 a year. We've given out over 200 and I have to do the math. 220 is what they had on the slide. But the beauty is that none of the funds go through us. We don't touch anything. People write a check directly to whatever charity they want to sponsor.
That's really
And
neat.
Way cool.
yeah, so since 2016, we have raised $253,032. In the last meeting, we raised $10,755. And we have food that is donated. We have beer, wine that's donated by the Fort Worth Air Power Council. We have a very nice venue that's donated by the company. And we have all volunteers. And so myself and three
And you
other
provide
people.
some entertainment too, right? Don't you have other
Yeah.
speakers come out?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, you remind me. So once the presentations are over, so that's about, say, 20 minutes total for the presentations, all of them to be delivered. Once those are given, the pitches are given, the votes go out, and then the people go in the back and they collect all the checks and they put down. Now we just, if whatever your heart, if you want to give 300, 100 to each one, or if you just want to give 100, whatever, we'll go tally up the money. And then during that time, we have a guest speaker talk to the group. And this last speaker was a POW for 7 years. He got shot down. I was 20 days old. He got shot down December 20th, 1965. I was born on the 30th of November. And he was repatriated. Bob Jeffrey, he was a pilot at the company too. He retired in 99. Yeah, 99 he retired. He was repatriated in February of 73. And so he was moved around different prison camps, and he just returned back, part of Veterans Initiatives. They flew him back to Vietnam, and he got to go. There's just this incredible picture of him sitting in his cell in the Hanoi prison. But he goes, how do the people treat you over there? And he said, 80% of the people over there were born after the war. It's a big turnover. So they really don't remember the war. They've got the museum, they've got the stories, but they don't remember the animosity towards Americans. As a matter of fact, he goes, it was very welcoming. I mean, I liked the place. It was nice. Food was great. It was cheap to live. I'd like to go visit, He said it was really good. But the picture inside of the prison, he had 2 concrete beds. That's what they slept on. Just these 2 6-foot looking concrete slabs. And that's what they used the slabs with chalk to later in their time there. They were kind of more lenient. They weren't torturing them because the information was irrelevant. If they wanted to just beat the guy to beat him, they would do it. But they pretty soon had guys that would, you say, LEEKSTER, you're really good at math. They would teach you all these designs. This one guy designed houses. He was an architect, and he built a house in solitary confinement in his head and designed everything. And that's what kept him alive was, okay, I'm going to cut this piece of wood. It would be 6 by 7/8, cut this and do that. And then he went out and he built a house completely out of his head, no blueprints. But he taught guys how to do that kind of stuff. And
those are the techniques you learn in SEER school as well. It's the coping. That's the one thing they can't take away from you when you're in that situation. And part of coping is learning to challenge yourself within your own brain. And it's amazing, the survivor stories, they all kind of follow that same vein, whether it was a Vietnam prison situation or any other. There's multiple examples of people being stuck by themselves for years and attempting to remain sane by doing these kind of mental gymnastics while they were, and it's the one way that they keep from giving up,
Yeah,
and that's
amazing.
the technique that they teach us in survival school in the military.
Remember the tap code?
Yes. And yeah, communicating and socializing and being able to share information is very important. And it's amazing how inventive people are. And I guarantee you those things go on in prisons with bad guys too. They get very creative in there.
Oh yeah.
There's nothing else to do but think about ways around the system.
Were you East Coast? Did you go through Brunswick, Maine for
I
SEAL
did.
school? So
Yeah.
I went through in January of 91. No, January of 92. And man, it was freezing cold, 3 feet of snow, the whole 9 yards. But that guy, Doug, was it Doug Birdall? He was a Navy dude that got blown off the
Yeah,
ship.
fell off the ship. Yeah.
Yeah, and they found him in the water, the Vietnamese, and they thought he thought that he was mentally, retarded.
Yeah.
And so they just gave him menial jobs, but he would sweep around the prison camp, but he would be doing the code the whole time he was sweeping. Sweep, 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 sweep. And for those that don't know, it was like knock one for line one, 3 spaces over, line two, then 3 spaces over, and you would form letters. And so he did all the news. Hey, Joe Bob hurting really bad from torture, whatever they came up with their little slang. And he would do that around the prison camp while he was sweeping, and that's how he spread news. And then the guy was very intelligent. The Vietnamese didn't think he was. And he memorized the names of all I would say 400 prisoners. And so they
Not just their names, but their social security numbers.
Oh, everything, right.
Yeah.
And they said, you're going to leave, you're going to go back. And he's like, I'm not leaving. That's against the code. And whoever the commander was like, look, you're going to go back and give these names so that our guys don't get left behind. I mean, just incredible.
Yeah, that was an incredible story that a guy could memorize. And he did it with a song, which is fascinating. The Maori, the Polynesians, that's how they didn't have a written language, right? So that's how they would memorize their navigation between islands in the Pacific, the different currents and, the stars and how to navigate across the Pacific Ocean. That's how they would transfer information to their children and other people, was through song and through like a poetry thing. But it's easier to memorize a song than an actual paragraph. Right? If you can turn it into a song, that's another survival technique that I remember. And this guy learned all those hundreds of names and social security numbers and put them in a song, which is incredible.
It is incredible.
And it worked. And he still knows it. Well, he did when we were there in the 90s. I don't know if he's still around, but he did still know a lot of it, which was amazing.
In the 90s, he came to talk to us at graduation. I was really impressed with that guy.
Yeah, some very cool stuff.
What about you, Rob?
I wanted to add. Yeah. I wanted to ask Rob because we've had Rob on the show so many times, but I really hadn't talked to him much about being a topside PO. A little bit about being under the airplanes when they were hooking up, but I started thinking about this today, and I thought, was there a specific catapult that you were assigned to, or was there one catapult that was better than the other, or what? How does that work up there? You have 4 catapults, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and is one more difficult than the other, or are they all kind of the same, Rob?
Yeah, LEEKSTER, it's funny you asked that. Nobody ever really kind of thinks about the logistics of an aircraft carrier, but if you think about the bow, what's on the bow all the time? Covered in jets,
right?
There might be one catapult. Yeah, they're parked. So when you're doing any operations, the waist is open, and catapult 3 is the main catapult on the ship. Catapult 4 is more of a backup, but there's not necessarily one catapult that's better than the other. But if you think about the workhorse of that ship, it's the waist cats, and catapult 3 specifically.
I see what you're saying. So if they're going to launch an alert fighter,
Cat 3 all the time, Cat 3. Every time. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That was
when we would do a normal launch, it seemed to me like you would launch like 1, 2, and 3, or 3, 1, 2, something like that. I'm not sure. When the light would turn yellow and then go green, which one?
Well, you always had to have the waist clear for any recovery operations, obviously, but seemed like the E2 always took off first, and then Tomcats were next, and then whatever else also rans came after
So
that.
did you have one that you liked working more than the other, or was it all?
Catapult 3 was the Cat 3 was the excitement. You know, that was the juice. Cat 4 kind of got the over. I guess you could say the whatever's left over, the Hornets. We would launch Prowlers off of Cat 4 a lot, but Cat 3 was the workhorse of that ship, and because of the alert status, the alerts, that was what was exciting. I mean, oh my God, you're sleeping in the catwalk and waiting, praying for that call, because if you're going to be up all night, you might as well have some excitement added to it. And Catapult 3 was always that fire in the gut punch, like for an alert launch.
So the air boss is kind of the guy who's in charge of all you guys, but really you're working for what, were the shooters your boss, and then you had a chief over you, or what did the hierarchy look like?
Technically, yeah, you always had a shooter, which would be directly in charge of the launch operation. But he wasn't necessarily on deck, but just like any other operation, you had that hierarchy. You had a chief, you had a flight deck LPO, you had a cat LPO, you had all those things. They weren't necessarily.
Who signed your evals? Was that the shooter or not?
No, my shooter, I guess, yeah, it would be the shooter, because he would be, in addition to his regular duty, just like every other pilot has collateral duties, his other collateral duty would be division officer.
Yeah.
So he would sign evals.
So most people don't know, but the shooter is the guy that you see in the movies who kind of squats down, touches the deck, and points towards the front of the ship, and then they launch the airplane. That's the guy you see in all the movies and all that, in the yellow.
Right.
So that guy, surprisingly enough, 99% of the shooters that I ever knew were all P3 pilots. Occasionally NFOs, I think, but mostly they were P3 pilots, which are not carriers, which I think is unusual.
I can think of one and I can't explain this, but there was a level of jealousy between like carrier pilots and P3 pilots, like big time. And they would take that out on different air crews, it seemed like. And I could tell a difference between divos or shooters who were land-based. And there was a huge difference between naval aviators, because technically they are not naval aviators, because they don't catch a hook. And I remember there was some tension in there, right? But one of the coolest guys that I ever had for a shooter was a Tomcat guy.
Oh yeah,
and I
might have been a Rio though, probably not a pilot.
I don't know. I think he might have been a Rio. I think you're right.
Yeah.
But he was the most animated. I mean, you can go up there and kind of go through the motions and act like whatever you're doing per Navair or NATOPS, whatever. But there were some that were just exciting, and they would, put that passion into what they were doing, which just made it more fun, made it more cool.
Yeah, you could see the guys that get excited about it and have fun with it.
Yes,
it's kind of scary. I mean, we have in our procedure in fighter planes on a catapult, and let's say in the movies, what you'll see is the airplane goes into tension, which means that the catapult is armed and it's ready to fire, and basically the safety switch, if it were a rifle, the safety switch would be off, and now you're waiting for the guy to push the button and shoot you, right? So during that time period where they put you in tension and you run the power up, the shooter would tell you to run the power up, you'd start wiping out the controls. You would look at all the engine instruments and make sure that everything was okay. And then when it was okay, you would salute, and then the shooter would look and clear the area to make sure that there was nobody in front of the airplane, and then he would touch the deck. And then there's a guy on the side in the catwalk that actually pushes that button to shoot you down the catapult.
I did that job too.
Yeah, which is kind of fun, right? You get to be the guy who, pushes the button to shoot the airplane off the boat, right? And I think that's kind of cool. Well, in between that time period when you're wiping out the controls, if you have an issue with the airplane, let's say you have a flight control issue, or there's an engine that's not operating correctly, or for some reason that you don't want to shoot down the catapult, you have to, as a pilot, your procedure is to shake your head left and right. Don't take your hand off the throttles and wave. You don't want to take your hands off the controls and wave and say, "Don't shoot me." No,
I
you have
never
to
knew
shake
that.
your head back and
I
forth.
never knew that. That's wild.
And say no, 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 no. But you also come up on the radio and you say suspend, suspend.
Right. Okay.
And you would tell the air boss up in the tower, suspend, and that means don't shoot me. Yeah. But you still sit there at full power, right? And that's when you'll see the catapult officer cross his arms like you just did. And he's saying, okay, we're suspending. We're not going to shoot this guy. But meanwhile, this gun is ready to fire. And you're in a broken airplane, and this has happened to me more than once, and you're like, please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me, because I might have to eject if you decide to shoot me, you know? Yeah, and they're all running around, and they have to disarm the catapult, right? So once they disarm the catapult, they safe the catapult and take you out of tension. Then the shooter will step in front of the airplane, and he will reach up and hold his thumb and pull his thumb back like so. And he's indicating that it's now safe for you to retard the throttles back to idle.
He'll actually step in front of your wing line.
He's supposed to step in front of the airplane. And as pilots, we were trained, don't ever pull that throttle back until you see that guy step in front of your airplane, because he's got to believe, the shooter's got to believe that the catapult is safe before I believe that it's safe.
And do you know where he's getting that information from, LEEKSTER? Because he's right there by the center deck hatch, right? You have a direct contact with the console operator below the flight deck. So he's checking and making sure that guy's in direct communication with the console, and he'll say, hey, is console safe? You have full suspend? Yes. As soon as he gets confirmation of that, he will step in front of the aircraft. Right.
And it can be pretty uncomfortable for everybody.
Oh, God, it's scary.
Frankly, the airplane's sitting there, maybe in full afterburner. It's at least at full military power. And so it's noisy, it's loud, everything's shaking. The airplane is going, okay, I'm going to go. And then they suspend, and then you finally can pull the power back. And it's an uncomfortable situation for everybody. And you'll hear the boss will be yelling over the 5MC on the whole deck, suspend Cat 3, and so that everybody can hear what's going on. Meanwhile, there's heat being blown off of that jet blast deflector. Everybody's getting cooked out there waiting for this guy to pull the power back on the engine. So it's interesting. I've been sitting on the catapult where I had one engine just start compressor stalling, bam, 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 bam. And it's blatantly obvious to everybody that they shouldn't shoot you because,
But I had no idea. I had no idea that this was your sign. From that.
You're basically saying, don't shoot me, please.
I did not know that. But suspend would make sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few things that, that people say, oh, it's really scary to land on a carrier. I would agree that landing on a carrier at night is very challenging and can be extremely frightening. But in my experience as a pilot, I kind of enjoyed that because at least I was in control of the airplane, right? I'm not in control if the wire breaks or something catastrophic happens, but I am flying the airplane. So I'm doing my monkey skills, and I'm manipulating the controls, and I'm in control of the aircraft until we arrest the arrested landing, the hook engages. And at that point I pull the power back and I'm done, right? Well, on a catapult, you are not in control of anything. You're basically connected to this cannon that's going to blast you off from up to 200 miles an hour, and you have no control over. You have control over nothing. And at night, it's extremely scary because the airplane's as heavy as it's ever going to be. So this is what Taco teaches at the company. In a 787 in a simulator, we spend a lot of time as airline pilots practicing our emergencies in the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario is the heaviest that the airplane is going to be on takeoff, and losing an engine or having a flight control malfunction at heavy gross weight, and knowing that you need to land quickly or control the airplane and get it away from hazardous terrain. And it's the same on a carrier. when you're on that catapult and you're running those engines up and you're wiping out the controls and you're sitting there waiting for that catapult to fire, you're at the mercy of all these machines working correctly, and you have no control over any of it. So for me, that was the most uncomfortable portion of the flight, and part of that really kind of scared me the most was that night catapult shot at gross weight on a dark night with no moon, and maybe it's raining. And, you know, you're just firing off that catapult and you don't know, are my instruments going to work correctly? Are the engines going to work? It's so violent as you go down the catapult that if something's going to malfunction in the airplane, there's a good chance that it's going to happen during that catapult launch. Yeah.
And you guys,
Todd look like Taco so when I get to tell my story about the visor that came down.
Yes.
You know, and those are those unknown unknowns, or the ones that you do to yourself. In my case, that, you know, as a kind of a stupid maneuver that I almost lost an airplane over something as simple as having the visor not covered, right, and not secured. Those are the things that can happen on that catapult in the dark, and you don't know what's going to happen when you go down that shot. Yeah, and then when it comes off the catapult and everything's working. You know, I would go down, people are like, well, what do you look at as you go down the catapult? I'm staring at the engine instruments and I'm glancing over at the airspeed indicator to see that my airspeed is going up and that my engines are not failing. And then when I come off the catapult, I transition straight to the attitude indicator to see that the airplane has set the proper attitude to climb away from the water. And then I transition over to my vertical speed indicator that shows I'm going up or down. It should show up. And then the altimeter the next instrument I look at is the altimeter, because the altimeter should be winding up and concurring with the vertical speed indicator. And if all those things, as I go through that scan very quickly, all those things kind of are in concurrence, you know, that's as I'm retracting the landing gear. And now I'm like, okay, the airplane's flying, I'm flying away from the water, and now I'm in control. And now you're back to being a pilot, right? But that moment of terror is there every time. You're like, okay, you're waiting for the worst to happen, and the worst might mean that you have to eject. It could be that bad, and in many cases, when things go that sideways, the airplane flips over upside down, and a lot of guys don't make it because the ejection seat is not going to save you from that. And you end up, you know, losing a crew or something like that. There's plenty of videos of that scenario. So you see those videos before you get to take off the carrier for the first time, and you go, hey, this is serious business.
I will tell you, there was like night launches, for example. Yeah, day launches were cool, or they were for me. That's that rush, that adrenaline, that power, that drive, that speed, just nonstop. Something could happen. My chief used to tell me, or I would ask him, I'm like, what do I do if I do something wrong? He goes, don't worry about it. You'll never know that you screwed up. I'm like, oh, that's comforting. So it's better to die than to look bad, right? But at night, like specifically a Tomcat, because of the afterburners, as you would exit the catapult and take off at night, and if it was a really calm sea, my God, you could see those afterburners on the surface of the ocean for a long time. And sometimes you could see the rotating beacon of the Tomcat and the white light on the port side. So I just specifically remember this. One of you guys took off, and I'm just sitting there and watching. Now, remember, there's another jet right behind you waiting to roll over the JBD and go into the NGL. And I remember watching that Tomcat, and it went so far over, and you could still see the afterburners lighting up the surface of the ocean. Yeah. And I was entranced. I didn't move at all. I just sat there and watched that jet. All of a sudden, I hear this palm on my hand. It's the CAT officer. He goes, hey, you going to bring this other jet up? I'm like, oh, yeah. But I was so locked into that jet walking away in the sky and watching those afterburners on the surface of the ocean. I couldn't move my eyeballs off of that.
Yeah. It was the cool thing. So when you're taking off in the daytime, you have aircraft holding over the ship. So when you go off the catapult in the daytime, you do your clearing turn, and then you had to stay low out until you're about 10 miles below, around 500 feet. less. So guys would use that as an opportunity to go really fast and stay down at like 200 feet and go smoking out to like 8 to 10 miles. And then you could pitch up and climb up because the aircraft were holding over the carrier. So you had to get outside of 8 to 10 miles and then you could go up. Right. But at night, the aircraft are all holding well behind the ship, like 15 miles behind the ship. That's where they would hold before they started their approaches. So at night on a full moon, and you had a really beautiful night and you could see the horizon and all that, we got pretty cocky and we started doing these vertical takeoffs where we would come off the catapult and then we would just leave the afterburner engaged, pull the gear up and rotate the nose up. And you'd get up about 45 degrees. But remember, the carrier is going through the water at 28 to 30 knots. So even though you're not pointed straight up 90 degrees, at 45 degrees nose up or 60 degrees nose up, it would appear from the deck of the carrier that the airplane was going straight up because the carrier would be driving underneath the airplane. And we would just go straight up and up to like, 5,000-6,000 feet and then, start to push over. But 6,000 feet's a mile away from somebody. So you're pretty far away by that point. But it was very cool to see from the flight deck.
It was very cool.
Yeah. And we did that.
As you talk about this, I feel
a few departures and then, the air boss said, okay, enough of your air show antics, guys. Knock it off.
As you talk about this, LEEKSTER, I can feel like a chill raising up from my ankles into my legs. I can feel that sensation of watching that in real time.
It's cool, especially cool from the F-14A because the afterburners on the A are just these gigantic flames coming out the back. So it was just very impressive to watch somebody do that on a nice night, full moon night. It was pretty cool.
And what you're talking about, like a suspend, like when I do my sweep underneath the aircraft, that's not just for looking cool. That's for you point at your starboard final checker, you point at your port starboard checker, and then you do the sweep all the way through. You're looking at the JBD guy. He's good. Catapult deck edge good. And then shooter good. And then you do your round sweep for tension. But you have locked eyes with every single one of those safety. That's the last safety before that aircraft goes airborne.
Yeah.
And as you stroke out, you're watching, we called it 3 seconds to death. You had launch bar inside the throat. That's one. You had position of the holdback in the back of the horseshoe. That's 2. And then position of the holdback into the NGL hooks. That's 3. So you got 3 seconds to check. 1, 2, 3. That's 3 seconds to that. 1, 2, 3, especially on a Tomcat. As soon as that was done, it was put your right foot forward and you're already bringing your left foot forward and running away from the jet.
Yeah.
So then as you get away from the aircraft, you're watching. I mean, even as you run, you're watching everything. You're watching valve safety and see if, my God, at night, if there's a red flashlight, well, then immediately I'm going to pull my red flashlight. If there's anything red and not green, that's an immediate suspend, right? But if everything's perfect and you get to the shot line and you're watching, the Tomcat was it had its own. To me, it was like an animal. And I've told people this before. I mean, when you would come to the catapult, I would take off my glove because I didn't want to get that jet dirty. And I would run it down the side of the jet. And I could feel that hydraulic fluid and that JP5 coursing through that aircraft. I could feel the vibration. And as I walked back to the NGL, grabbed the hold of the pad, I put my glove back on. I was part of that aircraft, right? So when I exited the aircraft, I was away from the jet. I was at the shot line. I'm supposed to be watching all of my different watch stations, watching for a red wand, watching for something from the troubleshooters, watching anything. But at night, my God, those flames that came out from the back of the TF-30, they would like hit the JBD. They didn't stop. They turned around the JBD and licked around the back of the JBD and then shot down over the top of it. And you couldn't take your eyes off that stuff.
And then you could feel it through your whole body.
Oh, you could feel. I mean, you feel your green shirt burning. You could just feel that power so close to you. And then those the formation lights would come on the Tomcat. My God, that was. How do you pay attention to all that when you're watching all of that in front of you?
Yeah.
Can I ask something? Rob,
Yeah.
would you on your time off, would you go up deck and on your days off or some time off, would you go up there and watch launches?
I was always involved in the launch. I wasn't able to do that.
Oh,
Always.
We would,
Yeah.
as pilots, if you're not. Of course, I was an LSO. I love to be up on the flight deck. That's the greatest show on earth. So I was
Same.
always up there. I love airplanes. So I was always.
You know what?
watching,
I will tell you,
I
Taco,
agree
there
with-
was one time we were up on like on Still Beach Picnic or something. I was walking around up on deck, and we had been secured for the day, and it was a 102 plane captain. And he was up there watching the jet, and he goes, and I went up to him, and he probably thought I was crazy, and I said, "Hey, you need any help watching that jet?" And he said, "What?" I said, "Do you need any help watching that jet?" And he goes, "What do you do in the squadron?" I was like, "Oh, I don't work in the squadron. I'm a catapult guy." And he goes, "I can't even get the people that work on this jet to watch this jet." And next thing I know, Leekster, I got one of those freaking brushes, and I'm up on top of that jet scrubbing that Tomcat. And he goes, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "Dude, I freaking joined the Navy because of this aircraft." I said, "I absolutely love this jet." And he goes,
Yeah.
"The guys in the line shack don't even want to come out and do this." I said, "Well, it's the difference between me and them."
Yeah.
But any launch operation, Taco, I was intricately involved in. And once I hit topside PO, I mean, I told Leekster this, I was 21 years old, and I was in charge of 15 guys on the catapult. And my only person above me was the shooter or the air boss in addition. But like on deck in time operation, I was in charge of all of that.
that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is incredible. Well, I think this is I love having this show, Taco. Taco and I have been friends for many years, and I'm just, I've always been impressed with you and your selfish, your selflessness, how many people you've helped get jobs, how many guys you've taught over the years, how many veterans you've helped.
And he takes no credit for it at all.
No, he's
Give me $20, man. I'll help you out.
Got an amazing family.
Appreciate you.
Whenever I've been at the company and I needed a little bit of extra training, you're always around to help me answer the questions that I need. And man, I can't recommend enough for folks to get on and YouTube and look up Tall Tales with Taco. You want to hear about some amazing people that he's interviewed. It's very entertaining and some great history there. So it's I really can't recommend that enough. And I love listening and watching those myself, and so does my dad and all my other friends. So everybody I know calls Taco the most interesting man alive, and he earned that title for a reason. So.
Oh God, yeah.
Well, hey, you boys put on your calendar July 4th. Come back to Taco Bell Casa, and we'll shoot the 50 cal for 4th of July.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we get some good video of that.
Yeah.
So
well, I can't thank you enough for you guys, Lorenzo in the background, and Rob and you, Leekster. We've known each other for 28 years. 28 years. Where has the time gone, brother? We are. There used to when we were flight engineers, guys would write Goomsan on the captain's side. And one day I'm flying with this old crusty guy who is my age now, right? 60. He was about to turn 60, and I said, "Hey, Captain, who's this Captain Goomsan? He always writes his name on all over the jets." And the guy's like, "Screw you, Taco." And well, what did I say? And the FO turns around and goes, "It stands for Get Out of My Seat, Old Man, Goomsan." I'm like, "Who's Captain Goomsan?" Now we are those guys, man. We are the old dudes. And these guys are upgrading to captain in 18 months. You remember they told us 5 years, 20 years later. Oh my God.
Remember you said you'd known Leekster for 28 years. I've known Leekster for 33 years.
Yeah.
We would have met in 1993.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about, these adventures, when you get people reunited and stuff after all those years. Your story and how you felt about him and what he did for you. You guys need
That's all because of you too, and you don't take any credit for that either.
No, but you did it, So you need to read that letter You need to read that letter one night when you and Leekster just read that letter and know that that's. I mean, if I was Leekster, I'd be so damn proud that somebody felt that way and remembered me that
And he
Oh
positive
doesn't
yeah,
take any
that's
after
very
all
credit.
these
kind.
years.
Of course, that's very humbling. Yeah,
He
that's
Yeah,
doesn't take any credit for that either, Taco.
yeah, but
Not at all.
that's Leekster.
None.
That's Leekster that everybody loves, man.
And
You
it
know,
completely changed my trajectory in my Navy career at that point because I don't know, I felt like I was starting to get pulled into that negative pool that I was in. And
yeah,
because of how Leekster treated me and how that whole interaction went down, I'm like, holy crap, somebody actually gives a damn what I do.
yeah.
And because of that, I just put 150% into everything that I did after that. I mean, I felt like I was doing pretty good prior to that, but after that point, my God, it was zone 5 into everything that I did from that point forward because
yeah.
of
Well,
that.
the work ethic of the group of guys that ran the catapults, that worked on the deck, all the yellow shirts, any of those guys that worked on there, the work ethic always blew my mind. I just could not believe that those guys would work. There's no such thing as an hour when you start or when you get off. It's whatever it takes to get the job done. It was always
It
like
is.
that. Very
And
impressive.
V2, specifically Cat 3, was the only work center on the ship that did not have 12 on, 12 off crews. We had you're on until that catapult's up. If
Yeah,
that
and
means
then you
you're on
had to
at
fix
4
it when it
o'clock,
was broken and get it fixed fast.
yep. And if that means you're off at 0400 and no loads are at 0500, well, that's what that means.
And that's a lot of heavy metal, man. You see a catapult disassembled, there's some big parts.
Everything's heavy.
Hey, did it drive you nuts in Top Gun when he launched the Alert 5 and he goes, catapults 3 and 4 are down?
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking,
Wait,
you
what?
have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. 10 minutes? Yeah.
Yeah.
How long would it take? Hours?
Depends on what it was. It would
Yeah.
really depend on what it was. And if the tool room had the part that we needed. I mean, that was a thing you had to fight through as well. So
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
be days. Could be a week. Who knows?
it could be.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Alert 5 ain't coming for you. Sorry, Bubba.
It could be it could be we pulled into Italy early, or no, we pulled into Greece early, and they had to fly a VRT team out from Virginia Beach. And that catapult was down till that VRT crew got out there and was fixing it. I definitely remember that because I was a topside PO. I had to be involved in every maintenance operation. I got no liberty at all while they were working on that cat.
Oh, man.
I'll stick
Hey,
by
I
it.
gotta tell you this one real quick. This is great. It's apropos of nothing, but it's a great story. My first airline job, I went to work and a guy told me he had a guy in his squadron, and this guy wouldn't stop yapping about how he'd been everywhere in the world, right? Everywhere. And he came to the airline and was like, "Oh, this guy, he's always I've been everywhere. I've been to every country." And finally, somebody in operations at the airline, one of the other pilots, goes, "You haven't been everywhere. Would you shut up?" He goes, "No, I have been everywhere." He goes, "Well, tell you the truth, I've been everywhere but Greece." And they go, "That's your new call sign, butt grease."
But
So
Greece.
from then on, we called him butt grease, right? So we, so we had this, so we had this other guy at the airline, and
And
he
that
always
works
looked like he
perfect
was,
for a description, right?
this
Butt
guy was
grease.
tired all the time because we flew. This was one of these all-night freight companies. That was my first job. And so everybody's always, looking like tired and everything. And we had a guy that always had bags under his eyes. So his nickname was Jet Lag, right?
Right.
But Jet Lag was one of those outspoken guys, one of those guys that everybody knows because he's a big personality and all that. So, oh, Jet Lag did this, Jet Lag did that. Where's Jet Lag flying to tonight? No. So one day, Butt Grease is flying a Transcon, and he gets to the other side of the country, and he shows up at the hotel, right? And, he's checking in, and, after you've been flying all night, you're pretty burned out. And when you're at the hotel at 9 o'clock in the morning after being up all night waiting for your room key, you're like, ah. So he's signing in, and the front desk guy there is helping him out. And he puts his name down, and he puts it on the wrong line or something, and he goes, oh. And the guy and the front desk guy goes, what? He goes, Jet Lag? And the guy looks at him and he goes, what? Me? No, butt grease. The guy behind the desk goes, what? And he goes, no, me, butt grease. Not jet lag.
Butt grease. Oh, you should do a whole episode on call signs, dude.
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
There was a guy named Larry, and he was hairy. If the guy had been born 30 seconds later, he'd been a gorilla, that type guy. So
Right.
everyone called him Hairy Larry. And Harry was his call sign, Harry. And it was like, is your name Harry? No, it's Larry. Well, how'd you get Harry? Because, take your shirt off, he looks like a gorilla. And
like a sweater.
out in Hawaii, he got promoted to captain, and he was the S2 officer. And so he pulls everybody into the office and he says, all right, gentlemen, now that I am the OIC, there will be no more cursing. I'm against cursing. There'll be no cursing in this office. And unbeknownst to me, he just made that announcement. I come walking in like 30 seconds after that. And I go, hey, Lenardi, to my buddy. I see him over there. I go, hey, where do you guys hide those effing charts, blah, blah, blah. I know you guys rat hole those mother scratchers, blah, blah, blah. You ice holes are doing this and that. Right. So I'm just berating him. And his eyes get real big, and everyone in the shop, and I stop and I go, what are you looking at me for? And they all look over at Harry Larry, and Harry's got his arms crossed and goes, Lieutenant Bell, in this shop, we don't curse anymore. I'm like, are you kidding me? And he goes, yeah, I'm serious. I'm like, okay. Hey, can I get the chart? Yeah, great. Okay, thanks. And I leave, and I go down to the FDO shack, and everybody is in there drinking coffee. And I go, hey, you guys, if you get a chance, go down to S2 and ask for the effing charts. And they're like, what? And I said, Harry just took over, and now he's told everybody there would be no profanity, no cursing. And I walked in, I was like, hey, where's the F in this, F in that? Well, next thing you know, the FDO walks up, who's a major, walks up, wipes off his Harry call sign and writes F-in, but the full word. So it wasn't Harry Larry, it was F-in Larry, and everyone started calling him F. I know you have to have the family show. So they were calling him F-in Larry.
I love it.
The more you said it, the more pissed off he got, the more everyone said it. And it was funny how a call sign could change like that.
Oh,
Just like
totally.
that.
No,
Yeah,
we had a
man.
guy in our squadron named Face, but it was spelled with 2 F's. So you know what the other F stood for.
Right. It was friendly, right, Leekster? Friendly.
What's that?
Fresh.
That's right. Fresh face. That's it.
Oh my God.
You guys need to come up with a couple guys, get a couple dudes, and you could have an entire thing on call signs.
Oh yeah. We could write a book, Taco.
I think we could. I think we could, definitely. Well, listen, gentlemen, it's 2100.
Thanks
it
for
is.
showing up, man. We really
It has been
appreciate
a
it.
blast.
Well, thanks for letting me run my suck, man. You know, aviators, we like to talk, and especially marine aviators. So,
Well, we'll be up on YouTube, and we'll have some pictures of Taco, and we'll have some pictures of his equipment. And by that, I mean his Hummer and his Jeeps and stuff. So you might want to watch this one on YouTube. You'll see some of those pictures. Will be great. And
Cool.
And we'll try and get some other photos up there. We need to get some Rob Todd pictures up on this one too. Lorenzo.
Yeah, awesome show, guys. Absolutely. And, want to thank you, Taco, for coming and sharing. It was everything I knew it would be. And, and just knowing the background, you guys all knowing each other, and the stories they're quite legendary, honestly. And to share some of them tonight was, quite cool. We thank you. And especially, I knew we started off on the right foot when you started off with that story of where you're calling, people on live on Facebook for your first show and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, looking at the phone caller ID, Taco's calling. I haven't spoken to him in a couple of months. And hey, Taco, oh, you're live on Facebook. I want to ask you some questions. Right out of left field on that one. LEEKSTER would shoot me, but
It'd be
I just
fun.
want to. It's awesome, man. I love the charisma and the initiative, and you're doing great things in the community, great things in helping veterans, and and I love the whole Hummer idea, and so awesome, man. Again, thank you for coming on.
Well, anytime you guys
real
come
cool.
down here in Fort Worth, you're more than welcome. Hang out. The boys know because they sat here for 4th of July and watched. We have a 180-degree view of nothing but fireworks. It's
Let's try
awesome.
Let's try and put square that away again this year. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was
really
very
was.
impressive.
Anytime. All right, guys. You all have
Very
a great
cool.
one. I will definitely talk to you soon. Hoorah.
All right, thank you very much, guys.